Hi, this is János, it's Real World Audio, and we are here with Kintaro. He said hello. And today I'm going to answer a question that I received a while ago. And I'm looking for the question on looking at YouTube Studio and trying to find it, and I can't find it. Downstairs on my computer it's on the screen, but here I'm trying to record and it's nowhere. So I'm going from my memory, and that speaker was that question was about speakers, about void pipes, and a question about high frequencies and beaming and positioning of the pipes. So roughly what the question was that the questioner has built a pair of void pipes, and I believe it was void pipes, and he has them set up that they are facing directly his ears. So I'm here next to my pipe, so basically one channel is facing the left at the left ear and the right ear, and that way he has the greatest high frequency perception. But the problem is that the sweet spot is very narrow. So yes, when you do it like that the drivers are facing directly at your ears, if you move away, then you are missing the spot where they are beaming the high frequencies at. So the question was, what can be done to widen the sweet spot? And the answer is very easy and terribly complicated at the same time. So basically, the easiest thing that can be done is to have the speakers toe out, and then as you toe them out, the sweet spot becomes wider. But of course, as you toe them out, then you lose some of that really high frequency perception, because it is hitting your ears less directly. And this is true not just of void pipes, but any and every loudspeaker. Each of them has certain amount of directivity. So some frequencies, so let me just rephrase it. So whenever you have a driver, a high frequency driver, a tweeter, or if it's like a wideband driver, or it has a visor cone, anything that provides high frequencies, with the exception of perhaps a plasma tweeter, and with the exception of a plasma tweeter, everything else has directivity to it. So basically saying that when you are on axis, you are getting 100% of the output, and as you move off axis a little bit, degree by degree, it's going to get less and less. Usually up to 15 degrees of a difference. When you go away from your ears, 15 degrees, you are still getting a lot of it, most of the frequencies. And then when you are at 30%, noticeable change, and beyond 30%, a lot of the high frequencies are gone. And when that happens, is that most of the high frequencies you are hearing are not coming from the driver, but the room reflections. And that's true of every speaker, that the further away you are from the speakers, the more you are hearing the room. And basically, the only way you are hearing the high frequencies coming from the speaker is if they are beaming directly at you and you are reasonably close to the speakers. And usually for speakers, if you are beyond 2 meters of a speaker, like 2 or 3 meters, depending on your room, depending on your speaker, the room takes over. So if you are like 3 meters, let's say like 9 feet away from your speakers, the vast majority of the energy of the sound hitting your ears is already reverberation from the room. So that's why if you want the speakers, listening to the speakers directly, then you need to be really close to them. And I will get a lot of comments that yes, that's why like headphones are the best, because then you are just getting the speakers and nothing from the room, right? And yes, there's truth in it, but there's also truth in it that the more you are hearing the speakers and less the room, the more detailed perception you are receiving. And also, it also means that the more artificial sound you are getting, because the sound needs to be in your room, needs to be molded into your room, needs to work with the reflections in your room to create a balanced experience. And sadly, audio today is very heavily biased to create a very unbalanced experience, where the goal is to ditch your room acoustics, ditch the contribution of your room, and artificially shape it to conform to an ideal. And that ideal is the ideal of some leading personalities in high-end audio who like that kind of sound, and it's their brainchild, they love it, there's nothing bad about that, that's how things are, and they were really successful at popularizing it as the highest of high-end audio, and they want everyone to go on that gravy train and ride along with them. And yeah, sure, right. And that's the best thing that we can do, is to experience whatever we want. And usually that's how everyone's audio journey begins, that we are emulating these dreams that the high-end audio industry is planting into our notice. That's what we are getting. And that's the upgrade path that we are all exposed to. That's where we can go towards. And then once you are not at the consumer level, but you are getting into how you can shape the sound, so you are not just at the level that I have to do this to upgrade, but after a while, after you've been upgrading for 2 or 3 decades, and you are still very far away from reaching your endpoint, then most of us do realize that you are not getting where you want by riding someone else's gravy train. You have to get off that gravy train. What is this gravy train? Listen to Pink Floyd and you will find out. And it's just some little bit of music history, and I think if someone calls himself an audiophile, it is meaningless if you don't know your music, if you are not interested in music, if you are interested more in the audio gear than the music we listen to. And Pink Floyd really is predominantly on an audiophile's listening diet. And if it is, then you will be familiar with that term, whatever it means. And if not, then just have fun and explore. You will find it out. And you will have a great time finding it out. So anyway, for me, myself, I never ever wanted to get on that path towards what audio industry is planting to us, for the very simple reason that when I got to learn about high-end audio, then my very first 2 high-end audio salesmen I ran into, and they were incredibly good people, and they were not those type of people who really want to skim you and sell you that high fidelity dream and just keep you hooked to, you know, upgrade to wherever they want. But they were more like musicophiles who went into audio because of their love of music, and this was in Hungary. So both of these people were in Hungary, in the city of Szeged. And when I went to Budapest and checked out a high-end audio store there, I didn't like it, because they were riding the gravy train. And when I went to the Budapest high-end show, everyone there was riding the gravy train. And not everyone, but almost everyone. It was really terrible. There were like 2 or 3 rooms which were acceptable to astonishingly good, but the vast majority of audio products that I heard were an incredible disappointment. And by that time I was like reading like Hi-Fi magazine and things for a couple of years already, and I was dreaming based on the reviews that these will be just so magnificent, and they were not. They were a very big disappointment. And I heard my friend who was going towards the Bauer-Wilkins upgrade path, and I found that the smallest Bauer-Wilkins loudspeaker was their best. That had pretty good tonality, very musical device, and as we started like going higher in their models, yes, you get more resolution, more details, more bass, more top end, etc., etc., better imaging, but the tonality was utterly, really poorly broken, and all of these things made me question everything that I read about the reviews. Not that they are lying to you or anything like that. I don't really presume that of people, but that everything is really, really relative, and depending on how you know your audio gear, how you know how to put things together, what is it that you want, that's what all matters. Because the difference that I found already back there in Hungary between those 2 audio salesmen who were exceptionally good and those who failed really big time was the difference that those who were exceptionally good, they were really into music, and those who failed, it was really obvious that they were businessmen and they run a business and they made darn good money of it, but that was like a very good lesson for me, is like how to look for people who listen to music, what kind of people you can go for advice for, and where that advice will lead to you. And now I'm going back to the void vibes, right? Because that was the question that was about. But I had to make this detour to make my answer palatable or understandable. Is that the problem is not with the loudspeaker, or not with something specific. So, and the answer to the question that you want a wider sweet spot is not going to solve itself easily. So there's like not a blue pill that you take, or just like one advice that, do this and then you are done. But it's a lot more complicated, and a system that sounds perfect in a sweet spot is very different from the one that sounds good with a very wide sound stage. And I can tell you that has been my progression as well. That when I built these void pipes, I built them somewhere in 2003. Yes, so now they are like 22, 23 years old. And at that time, they sounded their best when I had them pointing at my ears. Yes, that's when I get the best high frequency extension. And it's not even described as high frequency extension, but the best, most precise imaging and the best detail level. However, yes, it also meant that the sweet spot was really narrow. I had to sit in the middle of my sofa. And if I went to the side, then yes, that sweet spot was kind of like this, but then also front and back, it was also restricted. And I did not like that the sweet spot is narrow. And what I did is that instead of towing them in so they are pointing at my ear, I started towing them out more and more and more. And of course, in the beginning, when you start doing that, it's a little, even just like a few degrees of angle, you throw them out so they are not facing your ears, but a little bit wider and wider. You will notice that you have a bigger sweet spot. You can move around, you have freedom, and but also you are starting to lose some excessive details. And now, this is the point where your growth as a music listener, as a musicophile begins. Because you have to go and listen to concerts. Because when you listen to a concert, then you realize that there is no such thing as pinpoint imaging in real life. That is an artifact created by over-refined audio systems or improperly set up audio systems. And for me, I also noticed that in my system as well, that as I was improving on my amplifier, on my cabling and on my sources, then my system started sounding better without the as I taught the speakers more and more out. And there came a point when they sounded their best that the speakers are flat with me, so they are pointing straight into the room with zero toe in. And that is your goal, and that's when your void pipes or any other single driver speakers will have the best imaging, when there's zero toe in. And then you can have that sort of imaging that, like, the musicians are truly in your room, not in a weird visual overhyped way, but in a realistic way, so that the concept of the sweet spot entirely disappears, and you can be anywhere in your room and the musicians will be still there, like roughly between the speakers, and you can sit on the floor, the musicians will still there. You can stand up, musicians still there. Sit down, still there. You can go sit between the speakers and you hear that you are sitting between the musicians. And then you will not have that type of overhyped detail level. You won't have that, but you will have an exquisite balance that, in my impression, and it's not just my impression, a lot of my friends share it as well, that when you have that kind of imaging, that kind of presentation, it far outstrips an artificially over accentuated image. However, for that you have to really step up your amplification, you have to really step up your source and your cabling, and most importantly, your room. Because your speakers are nothing by themselves, they are just a tiny part of the chain that starts with your room and ends with your ears. And everything really has to mesh up to get that experience, that you are not tied down to a sweet spot anymore, and your speakers are playing happily. So I think that that's my response for how to keep how to widen the sweet spot. And yes, I don't have a quick answer for that. And yes, there are some quick solutions as well. You could DSP your system and then create a fake wider sweet spot. But if you like artificially force your sweet spot wider, there will be drawbacks for that, and it will come to bite you. And when you have like a shorter, a quicker jump to a next level where you think, but it's going to like kind of like there's a straight path towards where you want to go, which is like a natural sounding music that you can connect with, and it sounds like unamplified music instruments, unamplified people, and yes, there are multiple roads to that, and I have one road that I can share with you Other roads, yes, there exist other roads as well, but I am not the person to answer that. So because I have received the question, I'm giving you all the answer that I have to that question. And and if you can go other roads, then you will be, you can follow others who have traveled that path, but with others I don't know how far they went. And usually when people come listen to my system, or we have chat, they always say like, well, I want to travel further in that road, and then I don't think that I'm at the end of my road, but I always have people saying that, János, you have ruined me for life, and or things like that, that I thought that I'm on the path I want, but hey, wow, what you have here is very different from anything I ever heard. And actually my channel is there, so you can also get on your road. And how you can do that is just how I did it, is that I was looking for advice, and I never ever thought that what I'm doing is the only way to get me where I'm going, or whatever information or knowledge that I have at a certain point, that is enough, that is everything, and I don't have anything that is wrong. And whenever I find that something is not not working out as I think it works out, I don't have any compunctions about changing and experimenting and stepping further. Yeah, I think that's it. And ordinarily I would not be the one to give advice. If I'm with people, I rather listen to what they share. The only reason I'm making this channel and sharing my advice, because my friends were poking me very strongly to, yeah, no, please share, because you have figured out all of these things, and not just me figured out, but I have collected it from people who have figured out things. And that's why I'm sharing it. And usually what the feedback, the overwhelming feedback I'm getting from people, from you who are my listeners, and those of you who have tried my advice, and you are on your path following my advice, the initial answers I always get is that, János, I found out what you recommend, but I don't think it works. I tried something else and that worked better for me. And then 2 or 3 years down the road, that's when I get those answers. Yeah, actually, there were other things that you said, and when I implemented those, then that advice that I didn't take in the beginning, now it makes sense. And there's so many who are telling me that János, now what I didn't get those things a couple years ago, but now after I have built many speakers, designed them, came up with my things, with my amp and my system combo, now as I'm rewatching your videos, now they make sense. Back then they did not make sense to me. So that's what I recommend to those listeners of mine, or those viewers who've been following me. Just go back to older videos and watch them again, and because my videos have different meanings for those of you who are at the beginning of the road, or at the middle of the road, or who have been like building and designing your amplifiers and speakers for 30-40 years. And the best thing is that I don't know everything, I don't have answers for everything. We learn from each other, and just think of me as a hub or as a compass, and who can point out the cardinal directions for you. And sadly, in this case about single driver speakers with narrow sweet spot, my experience is not just with my ones, but other people's single driver speakers, is that the way to make the sweet spot wider is number one, room. The room is the biggest culprit in that, because if you need to beam your drivers at the ear, it means that your room is way too dead, it's over dampened. You should be receiving high frequencies from your room as well, and the way natural sounding audio playback works is that you should have a very high proportion of those high frequencies arriving to you as room reflections. Why? Because in real life, real music, the same thing happens. The overwhelming proportion of high frequencies comes to you as room reflections. Of course, depending on the size of the venue, the ratio of the reflections changes, and that's why we cannot have a single system that can reproduce a tiny venue and a giant orchestra, a giant concert hall with the same kind of same size of perceived audio or perceived room hall acoustics as the original venue, because your room will be always part of it, and if it's not, it will always feel fake and artificial. And yes, if when you set up your system that it's beaming at your ear, whether single driver or multi-driver speaker, you will always have the highest proportion of detail retrieval. So if you want the most pinpoint, the pinnest pinpoint imaging and the greatest textural resolution, that's going to give it to you. However, it's never going to give you the most natural presentation. So you have to just set your compass. What is it you want? Do you want natural sound? Do you want to listen to music? Or you want to realign your compass and you just want to listen to resolution and image for resolutions and image's sake, music be damned. And I don't have an answer to you which one is right for you. Maybe you can have both. But in that case, you set up two systems. Set up one system in a room for resolution and set up a system for natural music. And probably that will be the best answer for everyone. And that's even though I've been always talking like what is my favorite approach to music, which is natural sound and music, but also I don't spend much time, but I should spend time, that as the Latins said in Rome, varietas delectat, it means that variety is the spice of life. You will enjoy more music and sound if you have multiple pathways to it. So if you have a system that gives you a very musical approach, and if you have a system that gives you all the detail, and based on your mood you can pick each of them, because sometimes even myself I love like hearing exceptional detail level, and sometimes I'm in that mood, and it's the best when you can choose the system based on your mood. And some of you would say, oh, then I will need multiple systems. And guys, if you have been an audiophile for at least 5 years, you already have probably multiple systems. Like all of my friends, they have enough system to put together for 10 rooms or like 5 houses. And if you spent like 20 years, 30 years, you probably have enough systems to set up multiple systems. But all you need is maybe 2. Just set up 2 very different ones and enjoy the one you want at the moment. And have fun. Thank you for being here. Bye bye.